Now let us consider a theorem known as the factorization theorem. In the previous lecture we took a method for finding whether a certain statistic is sufficient or not, which depends on the conditional likelihood function given the sufficient statistic t. The main disadvantage of this method is that it requires knowing the probability density function or the probability mass function of t. If it is difficult to derive the distribution of t, we can't apply this method. Now we are going to consider another method for finding a sufficient statistic for a certain parameter, which does not require obtaining the probability density function or the probability mass function of t. This method is based on the factorization theorem. The factorization theorem says that if we have a random sample from a certain distribution, whether it is a discrete distribution or a continuous distribution, and if t is a sufficient statistic for theta, of course t depends on the observations x1, x2 till xn, then we say that t is a sufficient statistic if and only if we can find two non-negative functions, we call them g1 and k, such that the likelihood function can be written or can be factorized as the product of the two functions g1 and k. g1 is a function in the sufficient statistic t and the parameter theta, and the function k does not depend on theta. The reason why we call this the factorization theorem is because we can factorize the likelihood function into two terms. Now we are going to illustrate the theorem, the factorization theorem, using some examples. In the first example, we consider a random sample from a Poisson distribution with parameter theta, and we want to show that t equals summation xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. The likelihood function for the Poisson distribution is as shown in the slide. Remember, we considered this likelihood function before when we were dealing with maximum likelihood estimation of the parameter of the Poisson distribution. It can be easily shown that this likelihood function can be factorized into two terms. One of them is g1t and theta, which is equal in this particular example to e to the power negative n theta, theta power t, which is a function in t and theta, and the other term is k. It's a function in x1, x2 till xn. In this particular example, it is equal to 1 over the product of xi factorial from I equal 1 to n, and obviously this does not depend on theta. Therefore we can say that t equals summation xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. In the second example, we have a random sample from the exponential distribution with parameter theta. As you know, the probability density function of the exponential distribution is as given in the slide. Again, we want to show that summation xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. So the likelihood function of the exponential distribution, of course, is familiar to you. It's given by theta power n e raised to the power minus theta t. And this can be factorized into two terms, g1t theta and k x1 x2 till xn, where g1t theta will be a function in theta and t, and in this particular example k is equal to 1. Obviously k does not depend on theta, so we can say that t equals summation xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. Let us consider a third example about the factorization theorem. In this example, we have a random sample from the beta distribution with parameters theta and 1, and we want to show that t equal product xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. The probability density function of the beta distribution is given by theta x to the power theta minus 1 Of course, for the beta distribution, x takes values between 0 and 1 and theta is greater than 0. It can be shown that the likelihood function will be as given in the slide, and this can be written as theta power n t power theta over t. So we can say that in this example, g1 t theta will be equal to theta power n t power theta, which is a function in t and theta, whereas k is equal to 1 over t, which does not depend on theta. Hence we can say that t equal the product of xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. Now let's talk about some properties and theorems of sufficient statistics. First, the properties. One of the properties is that if t is a sufficient statistic for the parameter theta, and if u of t is a one-to-one transformation in t, then u of t is also a sufficient statistic for theta. Remember from the course of theory 1, you know the meaning of one-to-one transformation. This means that for every value of u, there is only one corresponding value of t. If we have more than one value of t corresponding to one value of u, then the transformation is not one-to-one. So here again the property says that if we have a one-to-one transformation in t, we call it u of t, then u of t also will be a sufficient statistic for theta. The second property says that u of t is not only a sufficient statistic for theta, but it is also a sufficient statistic for u1 theta, where u1 theta is a one-to-one transformation of theta. Now we are going to move to some theorems related to sufficiency. The first theorem says that if we consider a random sample having observations x1, x2 till xn from a certain probability density function or a probability mass function f of x and theta, if a sufficient statistic for theta, we call it t, exists, and if we have a unique maximum likelihood estimator theta hat of theta, then theta hat will be a function in the sufficient statistic t. Now we are going to prove this theorem. Using the factorization theorem, the likelihood function can be written as the product of two terms. The first term is g1 t and theta, which is a function in t and theta, and the other term is k, which does not depend on theta. Therefore, if we want to maximize the likelihood function, this is equivalent to maximizing g1 t and theta. And since g1 t and theta depends on t, i.e. the observations here x1, x2 and till xn appear only in terms of t. Therefore, the maximum likelihood estimator has to be a function in t. So this shows that the maximum likelihood estimator is a function of the sufficient statistic t. Now we are going to illustrate the theorem using an example. Consider a random sample x1, x2 till xn from an exponential distribution with parameter theta, having probability density function as given in the slide. First, we want to find a sufficient statistic for theta. After that, we want to find the maximum likelihood estimator of theta and show that the maximum likelihood estimator is a function of the sufficient statistic. To solve part A, remember that already we have shown in example 2, slide 4 in this lecture that t equals summation xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. In part B, we want to get the maximum likelihood estimator of theta. To do this, first we are going to obtain the logarithm of the likelihood function. This will be given as shown in the slide. After that, we are going to differentiate the logarithm of the likelihood function with respect to theta and then equate this derivative to 0. If we do that, it is easy to show that the maximum likelihood estimator of theta is given by n over t. T, of course, is the sufficient statistic, so clearly the maximum likelihood estimator is a function of the sufficient statistic t. Now we are going to move to a second theorem. The theorem says that if there exists an unbiased estimator whose variance is equal to Cramér-Rowe lower bound, then this estimator will also be a sufficient statistic. But the opposite is not necessarily true. The opposite means that if we have a sufficient statistic for a certain parameter, this does not mean that its variance will be equal to Cramér-Rowe lower bound. Now we are going to consider two examples to illustrate theorem 2. The first example, we have a random sample from a normal distribution with mean mu and variance sigma squared, and we also assume that sigma squared is known. It has been shown previously that x bar, the sample mean, is a minimum variance unbiased estimator for mu. This means that a variance of x bar is equal to Cramér-Rowe lower bound. In the previous lecture, we have also showed that x bar is a sufficient statistic for mu. This means that x bar, which is a minimum variance unbiased estimator, is also a sufficient statistic for mu. Now let us consider a second example. Assume that we have a random sample from the beta distribution with parameters theta and 1. We have shown in this lecture that T equal product xi is a sufficient statistic for theta. But does this mean that the variance of T is equal to Cramér-Rowe lower bound? The answer is no. The variance of T is not equal to Cramér-Rowe lower bound. And as we have mentioned in a previous lecture, that for the beta distribution with parameters theta and 1, we cannot find an unbiased estimator for theta whose variance is equal to Cramér-Rowe lower bound. But we can find an unbiased estimator whose variance is equal to Cramér-Rowe lower bound for 1 over theta, or any linear function in